he has no reason, I don't even think he has an ability to contact the victim in this case if he is granted the opportunity to be given a bond. Also, I would like to talk about the aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and riot charges. I did not represent Mr.